All right, so for this video, I'm going to be doing a demonstration on watercolor and glue resist. And before I show you the actual demo, I wanted to show you some end results of a couple ones that I did. So this is a fun technique where I've always done plants with it. This, where you see the white is the glue, and I do use pen around it. So really it's glue resist with watercolor and pen. I'm not really actually sure which way this one goes. Here we go. It's a good way to play around with warm and cool colors. I've used also salt with it as well, so if you want to incorporate using salt and see how it affects the watercolor, you can. And I can't wait to see what you guys come up with. All right, here's how to do it. So, step one is you are going to draw out your design with a pencil. I don't know if you'll be able to see in your video, but I've started to draw out a flower. Now, I drew really, really lightly because you don't want to see your pencil, but I did one section darker so you'll actually be able to see it. I don't recommend doing it darker because you don't want to see your pencil lines, and so I recommend doing your pencil really, really lightly. I just have that darker section, so I have a section that you can see. So I have this flower that I've sketched out on my paper. I'm using watercolor paper. It's thicker and it will handle being wet better. You can get watercolor paper at Walmart or Target or Jerry's Autorama or Joann's or things like that. So I haven't really tried it with other paper, but you can always give it a shot. I'm going to switch over to my document camera. Now, the first step is that on where you have your pencil lines, you are going to take just normal glue, Elmer's glue or any kind of glue you have, and you are basically going to draw with this glue. Okay, so over all of your pencil, you're going to do a layer of glue. Now, if you have really tiny details, this is not going to work, okay? You have to draw kind of large because this glue is going to run together. If I try to do a really tiny detail, this glue is going to then run in with the other line, and you want to have separate lines. So I'm taking my time. I don't want it to be too light, so I'm letting the line be kind of medium thickness, not too thick. You're not going to get super exact because glue is fluid, and that's okay. It's also going to bubble, so glue kind of pulls together. So if you go back and look at a line you've already done, and you think, wait a second, that was a straight line, but now it's coming in, and there's these little kind of bubbles, these pockets. You can kind of see them, how it's pulled together in these little drops. Well, you can just go back in and fill the spots that have thinned out if you want. But also, I think those kind of lines look cool and they pull together, so it's up to you. All right, so now I'm not going to film this entire thing, but just know that I'm going to sit here and draw glue over every single one of my lines. And you will too. Then when you're done and there's glue over everything, you will let it dry completely. You want it to be completely dry. I always just wait till the next day, but I'm sure if you came back in a couple hours, it would be good. But I'd rather be safe than sorry, and I wait till the next day. So, up to you. Okay, so now the glue is dried and everything's ready to actually start the watercolor. So I'm just using a basic Crayola watercolor pack. I have a 16 one. They also come in 8, so if you don't want to buy the big kind. And I just have a normal, regular brush and a cup of plain water. The glue that I drew over the pencil is completely dried. I don't know if I can hold it up. So you can kind of tell there's some texture there. It's shiny. It's ready to go, but it's completely dry. So now, everywhere that there's glue, the watercolor is going to resist where that glue is. This next technique I'm going to do is I like to call the wet on wet technique, which means I'm going to get my paper wet with water first and then go in and paint with my color. This will allow a lot of bleed to happen. So now I just got to pick my colors. I think I'm going to do warm colors for this. So I'm just putting water everywhere. Now this middle of the flower is going to be dark, so I'm going to pick a darker color. I'm going to take some red and mix it with some brown, maybe right here in the tray part. I need to wash this one off. And now I can get some brown because I want to tone this red down. Okay, so now that I have my kind of reddish brown, I can come in here and it's going to kind of bleed a little bit because of that water that's already there. Now it's gonna, you can paint in a way or if you want to stay in the glue lines, you can. I did water over the whole thing so that way it starts bleeding out because I like a little bit of bleed going on. Okay, I want it to be a little darker than that, so I'm going to get some more paint. Okay, so now I can keep going. I'm going to start taking some pink over here and have that kind of come out. And the brown and the brown that I made and this pink are going to start blending together really nicely. And you can start being able to tell that where this glue is, it's resisting the watercolor and making a really cool effect. Let me bring some orange into the game here. Make this a nice, bright, warm flower. It might look a little tropical. Now I'm going to start using some yellows around where the edges of the flower petals are. So at this point you can start playing around with color and with shade. Yellow is a lot lighter and the edges of this flower were a lot lighter. So I'm going to do that. Now, I can now just have fun with any of the warm colors. Now, I'm not mixing cool colors in with this because it turns kind of murky and I want this to be really vibrant. But if you want to tone your colors down, you can. I'm just not. All right, whenever there's a outside of a petal, I'm going to use yellow. And now the cool thing about this is you can be more messy with it. Since you're having a blending technique, the glue is already going to keep your picture. So you can get a little more messy with the painting itself and be more painterly with it. You don't have to be perfect because the paint's going to hold your picture and you can just kind of blend in colors and have fun with the color part. All right, let's use some red. Maybe mix it with this lighter orange. Okay, now I need a little bit more water. I kind of stopped doing my wet on wet technique, so I'm going to get some more water on my page. Blend it a little bit better. Now I can come in. Let's go back to this pink. Now, from your screen right now, you might be like, this doesn't look like anything. It's just a massive mound of crazy colors. And while you are correct, right now, that's what this part of the process looks like. Later, when I outline the glue, the picture is going to come back forward. Now I want to draw your attention to how you can kind of see the pencil lines for where I drew darker. So when I said to draw light, there was a reason, because I can still see my pencil lines for where I did my pencil lines dark. Okay, so now that I've got color everywhere that I want it, I can now let this part dry, and we'll come back here in a little bit. Touch up a couple places. I'm adding a little bit of brown here and there to give a little bit more of a shadow in a couple places and tone the colors down a little bit. It can still be vibrant with a little bit of brown. Okay, now I think it's ready. And we'll let that sit. Okay, so now that all the watercolor is dry, I'm going to use a pen. I'm using a Sharpie pen, but I also sometimes like using Flair pens. There's any pen you really want. I don't really typically, I like ones that come off a little bit darker. You can also just use a thin Sharpie if you want. So now I like to outline my glue. Now when I say I'm outlining my glue, I'm not drawing on top of the glue. I am drawing around it. So it'll be on both sides. So I'm going up against the glue on the paper, not on top of the glue. And then I'll go around the other side of it as well. Now every once in a while I'll have a little bit of mistake where my pen will accidentally go across the glue. But that's why I'm going to try to go slow and trace along the side onto the paper. This is the part where it's cool if there were some imperfections with your glue, like if there were times where it globbed or times where it got thin, because it makes some really interesting lines on your paper. Now, this is going to take a while, so I might not film myself doing the entire thing, because that would be a little boring to watch. So I'll go ahead and stop and then show you when I'm completely done. But again, just to reiterate, I'm not drawing on top of where my dried glue is. I'm drawing around the sides, both sides of it, wherever the glue dried. Okay. Okay, so after it's all outlined, you get kind of a funky, cool flower. Sorry, it goes like this. Like this. Now, just to recap, you start off with drawing something with pencil really, really lightly so you can barely even see on the screen. Then you go over that with glue. So you draw over the pencil with glue. Then you can start using watercolor, using wet on wet techniques. So here's one that's in progress. Now, this one that I tried to do in my example wasn't as successful because my drawing was a little too detailed. So this is one where the leaves are nice and big. This is the same kind of flower. I've gotten this crystallized-y look by adding salt. That's also an option. Here's a couple examples where I've done the background as well. So here's one where I did the flower itself with cool colors and the background with warm colors. Okay, so you can get a lot of techniques or a lot of different ways that you can do this to make a lot of really cool things. So this is glue resist with watercolor. I really like this one a lot. I can't wait to see if y'all want to try it.